Okay, so this OnePlus 12 has the best battery life of any smartphone that I've used. Coming in at 5400 milliamps for the size, this thing gives me 2 days of use with no problem. So if I forget to charge this overnight, I can still make it to maybe around like 6 or 7 p.m. before it really gets into the red, and I do need to put it back on a charger. So this is pretty impressive, and that's because of the battery optimizations with the software, but also this phone is running the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is also great at managing battery life as well. But when you do need to charge this thing, they still include a power brick and a USB-C cable inside of the box. And so you can get 100-watt wired charging out of this. So this should be able to get your phone from 0 to 100% in around 26 minutes. And then OnePlus has also added wireless charging. It was missing from the OnePlus 11, but they listened to people and they added it into this phone. So that definitely contributes to the upper price that we're getting with this phone. But it is something that is useful to have for some people. So it works with most wireless chargers, but also OnePlus does sell this super fast wireless charger that you can buy that has a built-in fan. But this allows you to take advantage of their 50-watt Air VOOC charging that gets you from 0 to 100% in around 55 minutes. And then also the design of the phone looks premium too. So you have black to choose from, but I do have their take on their emerald green here with a nice little marbling pattern here. So it looks like a nice piece of granite or whatever. But anyway, it looks very nice. It's a matte finish, so it's very nice and non-slippery. And then also you do have this camera module on the back, which is big, but it looks very nice and premium. It's shiny and glossy everywhere. Very, very nice, ultra premium looking phone. And then on the front, you will find a big 6.82 inch, 120 hertz Quad HD Plus display, and it is curved. So I would like to see a flat display on this phone going forward. But if a phone will have some type of curved display, this is about as much as I would want. It's not annoying, but I just want to see flat now. But besides that, I'm liking everything about this screen. The colors look very great when you're watching HDR content, any type of movies or YouTube videos. When you're playing games on this thing, it's amazing. And then also, this is one of the brightest screens that you can find on a smartphone with a max brightness of 4500 nits. So it's really not going to translate well on camera here, but I have it at max brightness and you can see it's totally blown out here when you're looking at it on this video. But in person, this is just a very, very bright screen. But yeah, if you're outside with the sun beaming down on you, you will have no problem looking at this screen. Oh, and then this screen does have this aqua touch feature. So your hands can be a little bit wet, or you can be outside and the screen might get wet from some rain or some snow like I'm showing you here. And it should still be able to work pretty smoothly. And I would say 95% of the time when I was using my fingers on the wet screen, it worked. Sometimes it's still messed up, but nowhere near like it is on any other smartphone when the screen gets wet or if your hands are wet after you wash your hands or something. So I really like that. And I like the fact that OnePlus focused on something that you don't really hear a lot of people talking about, but they focus on this feature for the screen and it actually does work. Now, most flagship phones do have a vapor chamber inside of it, and this is a little piece inside the phone that will help with cooling. So when you are gaming or watching videos with your screen very bright, this will help keep everything nice and cool. But in this OnePlus 12, they put a dual cryo velocity vapor chamber inside of this thing, which is not just a little piece on the inside. The surface area for this is practically the entire phone, and not all the way, but it's pretty close. So this means that the cooling efficiency is great. No matter what I was doing on this phone, it never got hot, never got warm or anything like that. And this just helps prevent the processor, which is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 inside of this phone, from throttling, and that decreases your performance. So cooling is on point with this. And really, this brings us over to the performance of this phone. Nothing I did slowed it down. I had no worries about doing anything with this. So it starts with 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, and that's the $799 version. But you can go to the $899 version of this phone and get 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage. But it is silky smooth with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and with Oxygen OS 14, everything is laid out pretty nicely. I would say that the software is getting more and more further away from the stock Android feeling like the original OnePlus phones, but nothing with the software is overly done. Everything is exactly what it needs to be, and I love being able to enlarge a smaller folder into these bigger folders so you can swipe through them. And I just want this feature to come to every phone because it's so clutch. And the settings menu is nicely laid out. I know it might be something weird to talk about the settings menu, but I spend a lot of time in here and everything is where I want it to be. And then of course, everything is running on top of Android 14. And let me tap a few times here. And outside of Pixel phones, OnePlus phones are usually right behind them when it comes to getting the latest software for Android. So I do appreciate that. And OnePlus is committing to 4 years of Android OS updates for this phone and 5 years of security updates. So this is lagging behind Samsung phones and also Pixel phones now that are offering 7 years or so. But you know, it's not too bad, but I would like to see OnePlus extend that a little bit further with the next phone. Now, the always on display on this phone is very nice and bright, and this phone does have very fast face unlock, but of course you can still just use your thumbprint like I am now, and it's very fast as well. But I am a little bit surprised that OnePlus hasn't really invested in lock screen widgets enough, so I do want to see that hopefully in a future software update. But now let's move on to my favorite part about any smartphone. That's going to be the camera setup. So on the back, you will find a triple camera setup. You do have a wide angle camera, which is your main camera, coming in at 50 megapixels. You do have a 3x periscope telephoto camera coming in at 64 megapixels. And then you do have an ultra wide camera coming in at 48 megapixels. And I think this is like the 4th generation of the Hasselblad partnership here with OnePlus. And so that's going to be helping with the color science. And I find that the, selfie photos and just my skin tones and stuff do look pretty good. Not as pleasing as Pixel phones, but definitely, getting better over time. And so I will say respectfully, the weakest point about this phone compared to other super flagship phones like the S24 Ultra and the iPhone Pro series of phones will be the cameras. They're still just a step behind, but that's really if you're doing side-by-side comparisons and stuff. But if you're not doing that, like I'm doing for this review, I really like the photos coming off of this thing, including the 4K video that you can do at 60 frames per second. And you can also take 8K video with this phone too, but I think it is locked at 24 frames per second. And yeah, I really want to see that 8K being able to be recorded at 30 frames per second, since I record at 30 and 60 frames per second most of the time. So I would like to see that in the next phone. But I'm sure most people will just be recording in 4K, and you can do 4K at 60 frames per second in Dolby Vision recording on this phone, and it comes out very, very nicely. I do have to bring the exposure down just a little bit sometimes, but overall it's a very nice looking video that you can get from it, especially when you're playing it back on this phone. And this might be a little bit of a stretch, but if next year OnePlus just decided just to work on the cameras, put all the resources in the cameras, also make the display flat, but leave everything else the same, the processor, the RAM, everything the same, just focus on the cameras, I actually think that would be a good strategy, because the hardware of this phone will be able to keep up very nicely in 2025. But for right now, the cameras are still just that one thing that will push it over the edge compared to other flagship phones. But you still have to remember, this thing is coming in $200-300 cheaper than some of the other flagship phones that I'm talking about. So you do have to take that into consideration. And so look, OnePlus just really has their groove back right now. And I think it started with their OnePlus Pad, which is an Android tablet that I really like that they launched last year. And then it moved on to the OnePlus Open, which is one of my favorite foldable phones. I use it every day as a tablet. Then we also have the OnePlus Watch 2 here. I haven't made my video on this yet, but this also has great battery life. It's also running Android. And then with this OnePlus 12, this just really rounds out their entire catalog right now. And especially because the price is very hard to beat. Again, starting price is $799, but you can also save at least $100 just by trading in any phone, any condition. But depending on what phone you are trading in, you can get up to $700 off in instant credit. So look, I think for the under $1,000 price tag, if you are looking for a flagship phone with really great overall performance, this is one that's going to be very hard to beat. But if you are willing to spend a little bit extra money on some of those other flagship phones, I will say that you'll probably get a better camera experience out of this, but it might not be enough drastic performance to make you justify the extra cost and price. But for right now, this OnePlus 12 is already one of my favorite phones of this year, especially with its battery. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. But like always, I do want to thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you later. Peace.